Revealed, a homeless boy's amazing talent exposes a millionaire's heart in a life-changing moment. Jamie, a 12-year-old with dirt-smudged cheeks and frayed clothes, roamed the vibrant streets of Chicago, where the rhythms of jazz floated through the air like a warm embrace. Clutching his worn-out guitar companion that never let him down, he sought refuge in music. Each note he played escaped his lips with emotion so raw, it could melt the coldest heart. He was often invisible to the busy commuters, yet his hauntingly beautiful voice drew a few to pause. In that moment, they felt joy ripple through the weight of their days, if only for a breath. Despite the biting cold of winter nights, Jamie's heart burned with a singular hope, to feel the warmth of a family, especially the presence of his estranged mother, once a celebrated jazz singer. Her addiction took her away, but Jamie still pictured her shining on stage, lost in the music and love. Alone on the streets, he dreamt of reuniting with her, believing that one day they'd laugh and play together again. Each strum of his guitar pushed him closer to that dream. On the other side of town sat Richard, a wealthy businessman whose towering glass office reflected an image of success but concealed a life hollowed out by ambition. His family stood on the brink of disconnection as he chased profit margins while his heart felt increasingly empty. One hurried afternoon, mid-meeting, he stepped outside to the buzz of the city. That's when Jamie's music caught his ear. The sweet, melancholic sounds enveloped him. His heart skipped a beat. Richard felt a stirring he hadn't in years. There was something about that boy's talent, the grit, the resilience. As he neared Jamie, he saw the light in the boy's eyes, even through the layers of hardship. When Jamie whispered his dreams, Richard felt a strange pull. Here was a child who embodied the hope he had abandoned. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks as Jamie and Richard formed an unlikely bond. Yet, reality was unkind. A community talent contest loomed on the horizon, a prospect that filled Jamie with both dread and excitement. It could be his golden ticket to change everything, to get closer to his mother. Still, whispers from bystanders stung him like frostbite, mocking his desire to be seen and heard. Richard faced his own demons, caught between the harsh world of corporate life and the authenticity he saw in Jamie's spirit. The day of the contest arrived, a swirling mix of anticipation and nerves filled the air. Jamie stood backstage, heart racing, listening to the crowd's murmurs. As he stepped into the spotlight, his soul poured into every note and lyric, his struggles and dreams blossoming into a tapestry of sound. Tears flowed, silence gripped, as Jamie's performance captivated the audience, leaving them both moved and reflective. Just as the applause echoed around him, a shocking revelation about Richard's hidden struggles rocked the crowd. The moment hung thick in the air, a charged tension building. Jamie, lost in the flickers of newfound understanding, realized their worlds weren't so apart. With hearts exposed and stakes raised, they faced the choices that could intertwine their fates forever. Would Richard reach out to the boy who had taught him about resilience and belonging? As the applause began to fade, Jamie stood frozen in place, the weight of the moment pressing on him like a heavy blanket. The audience's eyes were still on him, some filled with tears, others wide with admiration. But it was Richard's face that Jamie focused on. What lay behind those eyes that had once been so full of ambition? Richard walked slowly towards the stage, the rough edges of his business suit contrasting sharply with the heart laid bare on the stage. As he approached, the crowd sensed the shift, their whispers turning to a hush. Richard cleared his throat, a wave of vulnerability washing over him. "I don't know if you remember me, Jamie," Richard began, his voice steady yet filled with emotion. "But you reminded me of what it feels like to truly live, to connect with what matters most." Jamie's heart raced. This was a man who had everything, and yet he felt so much emptiness. Deep down, they both understood what it was like to be lost, each in their own way. The world felt like it was holding its breath. "I've been so caught up in my own struggles that I forgot how powerful music is," Richard continued, "and how it can touch hearts when everything else fails." The audience was enraptured. Jamie could feel the spark of hope blossoming from Richard's words. Would you let me help you? Richard asked, leaning closer. I want to support you, Jamie. I can connect you with people who can help find your mother, perhaps even open doors for you in music. For a moment, Jamie was speechless. A rush of warmth filled him, but then doubt shadowed his thoughts. Why? Why would you want to help me? He finally asked, the tremor in his voice revealing the fear beneath. Richard hesitated, his gaze dropping to the floor before lifting back up, sincerity shining through. Because you showed me a glimpse of joy I thought I lost forever. I want that back, and I think we need each other. I need your spirit. You've helped me more than you know. That simple truth hung in the air like a long-held breath finally released. Jamie's defenses softened, the flicker of hope igniting into something more substantial. What if this was the moment he had waited for? The one that could bring his family back together and change his life forever. As the crowd erupted in applause once more, Jamie raised his guitar and played a soft melody. This time, it was different. Each note resonated with gratitude and new beginnings. But just as the last strum faded into the excited chatter of the crowd, Jamie felt a presence at his side. A familiar silhouette lingered at the edge of the stage, and his heart dropped. Could it be? The answer hung in the air, pulsing with possibility. Would Jamie's mother step forward into the light of his hope, or would the darkness of the past continue to separate them? As happiness and uncertainty clashed, Jamie took a deep breath, ready to bridge the distance with a song that could finally bring them together. The moment of truth was near, but would he have the courage to face it? The applause faded, but the weight of the moment pressed heavily on Jamie's chest. He stole another glance at his mother, who stood there, eyes wide and glistening, as if she still couldn't believe he was right in front of her. Her presence was a balm to wounds he thought would never heal. But the chill from the shadow and the crowd wouldn't let him breathe easily. Jamie? She whispered, pulling him back from his swirling thoughts. Did you mean what you said? Can we really start over? Her voice wavered, both hopeful and fearful, painted in the colors of their past. Yes, Mom. I want that more than anything. The words rushed out, filled with fervor and longing. He felt a surge of courage building within him, but the figure lingering at the edge of the crowd gnawed at his resolve. Then let us find a place to talk, she said, taking a hesitant step forward. The way she reached for him held a quiet urgency, as though she feared this tender moment might slip away. Okay, he agreed, but beneath the surface, an undercurrent of dread twisted in his stomach. He could feel that shadow still watching, like a hawk preparing to swoop down. As they walked toward a quieter corner of the venue, Jamie scanned the crowd, searching for that ominous presence, but it melded into the waves of people. His mother caught sight of his unease. What's wrong? He wanted to tell her, to voice the doubts that clouded his mind, but their reunion felt fragile, and he didn't want to shatter it with fear. I'm fine, just overwhelmed, he said, forcing a smile. They settled on a small bench at the far side of the stage, the dim glow of the lights casting a warm hue around them. Jamie took a deep breath, absorbing this new reality. Here he was, heart racing beside the woman who had once been his whole world. You've changed so much, she said, brushing a stray hair back from her face. Your music, it's beautiful. I'm sorry I missed it for so long. It wasn't just the music, Jamie replied quietly. I missed you. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears, and he could see the weight of regret pressing down on her. I made mistakes, Jamie. I was so scared of what? Jamie felt a sudden urgency to understand. Scared of me? Of everything, honey. I thought leavings would be easier. I was wrong. He wanted to tell her she wasn't the only one who had suffered. His childhood had been colored by silence and longing, moments cried alone in dark rooms, wishing she would come back. But as he looked into her eyes, he found the strength to forgive. Just then, the shadow materialized before them, breaking the moment like shattered glass. It was a face he thought he had left behind, one he had only ever seen in nightmares. Jamie, the figure called out, voice rough like gravel. You're really going to entertain this nonsense? Panic surged through him. His mother's eyes darted to Jamie, alarmed but unsure. Who is this? It doesn't matter. Jamie shouted, irritation flaring. You don't get to do this again. But the figure stepped closer, a menacing smile creeping onto their face. But I'm not done with you, kid. Not by a long shot. Jamie clenched his fists, feeling both his mother's fear and his own rise like a tide. The bond they were beginning to forge now felt threatened, teetering on the edge of a new chasm. Mom, what do we do? His voice, though desperate, echoed with the hope that she would know the answer. With fear in her eyes, she reached for his hand, grounding him in the moment. We faced this together. As the confrontation loomed, Jamie felt a tide turning within him. Could courage bridge the gap of their past? Would they shield each other from the darkness creeping in on them? The world felt heavy, yet a flicker of determination ignited in his heart. Who would win this battle? Perhaps the fight for their future remained to be seen. The figure loomed over them, casting a long shadow that threatened to swallow the moment whole. Jamie's heart raced as he looked back and forth between the familiar face and his mother, who gripped his hand tightly. The emotion flooded him: fear, anger, unresolved feelings. Why are you here? Jamie demanded, rising from the bench, ready to defend the fragile connection he had just begun to rebuild. You don't get to ruin this for me again. Ruin? The figure scoffed, raising an eyebrow. I'm just here to remind you of who you really are, what you really come from. There was a twisted glee in their voice that sent chills through Jamie. His mother stood slowly, a protective aura surrounding her. Leave us alone, she said, voice steady but shaking slightly. You have no right to speak to my son like that. Ah, so sweet, they mocked, taking a menacing step closer. You two really think this is a happy ending? I know better. You think a few nice words and a song can change the past? Jamie's chest tightened. He could feel the weight of old wounds aching to the surface. I don't need to answer to you, he shot back, but the resolve felt brittle. The crowd's cheers faded into a dull hum, the earlier warmth replaced by tension. People began to notice, eyes shifting toward the scene, unfolding, curiosity mingling with concern. Why did you come back? Jamie's words spilled out like a punch. To spoil everything again? Just like before? The figure's smile widened, dripping with malice. I came because you're mine. You always were mine. I don't care how successful you are, or how much your music pulls on heartstrings. You can't escape me, Jamie. Jamie's pulse raced, matching the chaotic rhythm of his thoughts. He turned to his mom, searching for reassurance. She was there, steadfast, holding his gaze, defiance shining in her eyes. Together, she whispered, we're stronger. He inhaled deeply. In that moment, anger turned into clarity. If you think I'm still that scared little boy, you're wrong. I control my life now. The figure recoiled, a flicker of confusion crossing their face, but they quickly masked it with an icy glare. You think this is over? Jamie lifted his chin. I won't let you drag me back. We have a future to build. A new one. His mother squeezed his hand. No, Jamie. You don't have to do this alone. We're a team now. The figure stepped back, hesitating. You think this will last? All it takes is one slip, one mistake. The threat hung like fog in the air, but Jamie looked at his mother, who filled him with a warmth he had long thought extinguished. Bring it on, he breathed, feeling the rush of empowerment surge through him. He would not back down. They had both suffered too long. What are you going to do now? The figure asked, voice dripping with mockery. Sing another song? Play your little guitar? But as his fingers curled around the familiar wood of his instrument, a realization hit him. It wasn't about the music alone, it was about the connection. It was about healing. Somewhere within the crowd, a voice called out, Jamie, you've got this. It was a stranger, but it felt like an army was suddenly behind him, echoing with optimism. I'm not scared anymore, Jamie said firmly. This is my story, and I'm ready to write a new chapter. With that, the figure hesitated, the bravado faltering. Jamie's heart soared. Had he finally reached them? But just as he started to feel the power of his words resonate, the shadow of doubt loomed again, burrowing into his thoughts. Let us see how long that lasts, they sneered, backing away into the crowd. The finality in their voice made it clear that this wasn't over. Jamie locked eyes with his mother, who nodded, her expression resolute. Jamie, we can't let them win, she said, urgency lining her words. He could feel the resolve building, but the fear still whispered in the recesses of his mind. How could he truly move on when the past was still nipping at his heels? He turned to her, determination mingling with uncertainty. Can we really move forward together? In that moment, Jamie realized it was not just about holding on to courage, but knowing what to let go of. As hope battled apprehension, he felt the audience's gaze, and the dawning realization struck him: this confrontation was just the beginning. Was he finally ready to face the truth of his past, to step fully into his future? As the crowd buzzed with anticipation, Jamie knew the path ahead was still fraught with challenges. But now it was a path he would walk with his mother by his side, standing hand in hand against whatever darkness lay ahead. The noise of the crowd seemed to fade away, the world shrinking to just Jamie and his mother, standing tall against the figure that had haunted his memories. But as the figure receded into the crowd, Jamie felt a mixture of relief and uncertainty. He had stood his ground, but the threat lingered. He could still feel the weight of unresolved emotions pulling him down. "Did you see that?" Jamie's mother broke the silence, a proud smile spreading across her face. "You didn't let them get to you. You stood strong." Jamie nodded, but the words didn't quite fill the void. "But what if they're right?" he murmured, almost to himself. "What if this is just the calm before the storm?" His mother squeezed his hand tighter. "We take it one step at a time. Remember what we talked about? Your music, your voice, they matter. This is about so much more than the past." He glanced at the crowd, their eyes filled with a mix of admiration and curiosity. It felt strange to be the center of attention, especially with everything so raw. Yet, deep down, the knowledge that he had supporters ignited a flame of hope within him. "Mom, what if I mess up? What if I fail to hold on to this moment?" The doubt was suffocating, but he couldn't let it consume him. "Failure is a part of progress, Jamie. It's how we learn and grow. What matters is that you keep trying," she replied, her voice steady like a lighthouse in a storm. He took a deep breath, filling his lungs with the electricity of the moment around him. "Okay, let us go for it." He could no longer keep hiding behind fear. His hands trembled slightly as he gripped his guitar. The familiar feel of the worn wood provided a sense of comfort. As he stepped back onto the makeshift stage, the crowd hushed, an eager silence settling over them. Jamie looked out and saw faces filled with encouragement. Strangers, yet somehow familiar, a community of people who understood the fight for healing, the struggle for acceptance. "Here goes nothing," he murmured, and strummed the first chord. It rang out clear and bright, a beacon cutting through the fog of self-doubt. The moment flowed into a melody, and he found himself pouring his heart into the song. Each note told a story: the battles he fought, the pain he endured, the hope that flickered like a candle in the dark. The music entwined with the energy of the crowd, and he could feel them leaning in, absorbing every word. With every verse, the weight began to lift. Jamie performed not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever felt lost, misunderstood, or broken. He realized this was not just about facing his past. It was about moving forward and lifting others along the way. As he reached the chorus, an unexpected tear blurred his vision. It was a release, a mixture of sorrow and joy. He finished strong, the last note echoing into the stillness, hanging in the air like a promise. The crowd erupted, cheers and applause crashing over him like waves. It was a thrill unlike anything he had ever felt, a celebration of resilience and connection. But amidst the joy, the figure loomed in his mind, a phantom that refused to fade. "Jamie!" a voice shouted from the front. He squinted into the crowd to see a familiar face, his old friend, Kyle, holding a sign that read, "You're not alone." In that instant, his heart swelled. Perhaps the figure's shadow was right. He would still face challenges. But if he had an army of support, maybe the darkness could be faced with light. His mother beamed, pride radiating from her like sunshine. She knew this was a turning point. "You see?" she whispered. "You can do this." But just as the celebration bloomed, Jamie noticed a figure re-emerging from the crowd, their expression unreadable. Was it just his imagination, or was the threat coming back to haunt him once more? As Jamie caught the figure's gaze, a chill descended. Was he truly ready to confront the shadows of his past? With his heart pounding, he braced for whatever came next. Jamie's breath hitched as he locked eyes with the figure now cutting a path through the crowd. It was a familiar face, one that had previously been nothing but a ghost in his nightmares. The man's presence sent a ripple of panic coursing through him, but it quickly transformed into determination. This was not a moment to cower. This was a moment to face the truth. His fingers found the guitar strings again, grounding him. The applause was still echoing in his ears, but the rhythm of doubt was creeping back in. He had just opened his heart to the world, but there stood the one person who could shatter this fragile confidence. Jamie felt his resolve dip for a moment, but then he remembered the warmth of the crowd surrounding him. With a flick of his wrist, he strummed a tentative chord that matched the tremor in his heart. Then he shifted into a powerful, driving beat, letting the music push away the shadows. Somewhere deep inside, he understood that the audience wouldn't just hear his words, they would feel his truth. "Hey," he called out, his voice steady and strong, drawing attention back to him. The crowd quieted, faces eager and expectant. He turned his gaze onto the figure, a sense of control flooding over him. "I want to share something real tonight." The man stood a few feet away, eyeing him with a mixture of surprise and disdain. It was clear Jamie still stirred unsettling memories for him, memories that came with pain and regret. But Jamie refused to back down. He took a step closer to the edge of the stage, gripping the microphone tighter. "Everyone has a story. Mine isn't perfect, but it's mine. And tonight, I'm not running from it." He exhaled, feeling lighter. "I faced some tough times. I was lost, maybe even broken. But this," he gestured to the crowd, "this has been my healing." The reaction was electric. The crowd erupted into cheers, but Jamie focused intently on the figure before him. He had no idea how he planned to navigate this confrontation, but sharing his truth felt like a part of the process. "I've learned that our battles are meant to teach us, not destroy us," he continued, meeting the man's gaze unwaveringly. The figure shifted, uncertainty clouding his features. Jamie's heart raced, but he pressed on. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to show you what I've become. I won't let the past define me anymore." With newfound energy, Jamie launched into another song, one filled with raw emotions and healing. The lyrics flowed from his heart, recounting tales of resilience, hope, and finally letting go. He poured every ounce of himself into the performance, the chords resonating not just with his struggles, but also with a sense of liberation. As he played, he caught sight of his mother's face glowing with pride. Beside her, Kyle held up his sign again, jumping in excitement. The crowd was swaying, singing along, and cheering him on. Yet amid the beautiful chaos, Jamie couldn't shake the feeling of the figure still watching, waiting for something. The moment reached a crescendo, a collective emotion swelling in the air, before the final note faded into a soft echo. The crowd went wild, a wave of love crashing over him, but his eyes remained fixed on the man still standing there. "Now, it's your turn," Jamie breathed, heart pounding in his chest. "Do you want to join this story? Or do you want to keep hiding in the shadows?" The figure hesitated, the mask of indifference slipping ever so slightly. Jamie's heart raced, teetering between hope and dread. Would he take a step forward, or leave Jamie to face his demons alone? The crowd held its breath, every pair of eyes focused on the man who had stirred so many memories. Jamie wondered if this was the moment everything would change. The silence stretched, palpable and thick. Jamie's heart thudded loudly in his chest, a drumbeat that seemed to echo through the crowd. He could see the flicker of recognition in the man's eyes, flashes of a past that threatened to drown them both. All the unspoken words hung heavy in the air, begging for release. A bead of sweat trickled down Jamie's temple as he fought to maintain his composure. He remembered the nights spent rehearsing, the days filled with doubt, but this was different. This was his moment, and he was done being a spectator. "Just say something," Jamie urged, breaking the silence with a quiet intensity. "You don't have to be anonymous anymore." To his surprise, the man moved slightly, shifting his weight. Jamie caught a glimpse of vulnerability breaking through the hardened exterior. As if pulled by an invisible force, Jamie took another step forward, the crowd's electricity urging him on. "Everyone deserves a second chance," he continued, his voice unwavering. "I'm standing here, fighting for mine. Can't you fight for yours too?" The man blinked, his expression wavering between anger and heartbreak. Jamie knew he was pushing, but sometimes it took a jolt to crack through years of silence. Hadn't he lived that very truth? He had sung about battles and healing for a reason. In a surprising twist, the figure took a step closer. The crowd gasped, and an awe-filled hush enveloped the venue. Jamie's heart raced faster. The vulnerability shone through. This man wasn't just a ghost from Jamie's past. He was a man grappling with his own demons. "Why are you doing this?" he finally asked, his voice almost a whisper, thick with emotion. Jamie searched for words, feeling the weight of every moment that had led them here. "Because we can't move forward without facing what we've left behind," he replied. "I'm inviting you into my truth. Maybe it's time for you to find yours." For a moment, time stood still. The crowd watched, breaths held, hearts beating as one with Jamie's courageous plea. The tension hung in the air, soaring higher with every passing second. Finally, the man's expression softened. A crack in the stoic facade appeared, and Jamie felt hope flare. But just as quickly, the uncertainty returned. He hesitated, hands trembling at his sides, almost as if he were about to take flight or flee. The man stumbled over his words, hesitating between the safety of the past and the uncharted territory that Jamie represented. Frustration bubbled inside Jamie. It's been too long hiding in the shadows. Can you even see the light anymore? He was pleading now, raw honesty spilling from his soul. With a choked breath, the man's voice cracked. I don't know if I'm ready. Sometimes you just have to jump, Jamie whispered, feeling the urge to step off the platform of familiarity into the open sky of possibility. As the words hung between them, the crowd remained a swirling sea of hope and tension. Kyle was jumping again, urging his dad to take a step forward. Jamie's mom had tears in her eyes, waiting for the moment of connection to unfold. Would this be the bridge they needed to cross? Would the past finally collide with the present in a way that could create a new future? Take my hand, Jamie murmured, extending his arm toward the man. Together, we can start writing our stories anew. The moment stretched out, every eye on them, every heartbeat in rhythm with the tension. Would he take that leap into healing? As the man hesitated, Jamie could feel the weight of everything they had lost and the light of all that was still possible. The crowd remained breathlessly attentive, waiting for the answer that might just change everything. The man's gaze locked onto Jamie's outstretched hand, a storm of emotions roiling behind his eyes. Jamie could see the struggle, the tightrope walk between the past that haunted him and the flickering beacon of hope extending from Jamie's palm. The silence tightened, suffocating yet exhilarating. Take it, Jamie whispered, his heart thumping louder with every passing second. The weight of everyone's gazes felt like fire on his skin, but he squeezed his eyes shut, willing all his strength into that simple invitation. Finally, the man took a breath, shaky and laden with years of regret. He opened his mouth, but the words couldn't form. Another moment of hesitation. Jamie's hand started to tremble, uncertainty creeping in. Did he misjudge this? Was he pushing too hard? The man's voice cracked, wavering like the flicker of a dying candle. Jamie could feel the doubt settling thickly in the air. Just as Jamie thought he might withdraw, the man took a shuddering step towards him. The crowd drew a collective breath. This isn't just my past I'd be facing, the man said, a tremor running through his voice. This is your life too. If I take your hand, I might ruin everything. But if you don't, Jamie countered, his heart racing even faster, you risk losing the chance to change it. Isn't that worse? Tears glimmered in the man's eyes, reflections of pain stacked high, years of emotion threatening to spill out. Jamie took another calculated step closer, his voice low yet fervent. Look at all these people. They're here for you. They believe in us. I believe in us. There's nothing we can't face together. For the first time, a flicker of courage danced in the man's eyes, cracking the icy shell built over so many heart-wrenching years. It was then that Jamie sensed the shift, felt the tide starting to turn. Trembling, the man lifted a hand towards Jamie's. The crowd gasped collectively again. This was the moment. Would he connect? Would Jamie's dream of healing, of reconciliation, finally take shape? He felt electricity thrumming through his veins. The man's hand hovered for a heartbeat, uncertainty battling with yearning. Realization began to wash over his face, warmth illuminating the shadows. With one swift motion, he grasped Jamie's outstretched hand. A ripple of gasps turned to cheers as the crowd erupted, breathless support swelling around them. I don't know what this means yet, the man choked out, his voice cracking with emotion, but I want to find out. Jamie nodded, his heart swelling. Then let us discover it together. In that instant, they showed the audience, and themselves, that healing was within reach. Jamie felt a rush of weight lift, excitement spiraling into joy. It was a leap, a twist of fate, the beginning of a new chapter. But as they stood hand in hand, the applause fading into a backdrop of hushed excitement, uncertainty gnawed at Jamie's stomach. What lay ahead? Could they really mend the ties that bound them to their troubled past? As the moment stretched into an unknown future, Jamie's eyes met Kyle's. The glimmering hope in his son's gaze hinted at something larger, a purpose deeper than either of them understood. But would they find that purpose together, or would new battles arise from this newfound alliance? The tide of healing had begun, but the waves of the past could still knock them off course. Would they be strong enough to face them, or would old demons rise to shatter their fragile moment?